Manchester United are looking to do a double deal for Jared Brathwaite and Michael Olise. And will Erik ten Hag stay as the manager next season? Apparently, there is one condition which will be make or break for Ten Hag's future. These are some of the topics we will be discussing on this evening's live show. But before we get into that, please do me a small favour. Give today's video a thumbs up. Let's try and see 200 likes on today's show. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe to the channel as well. I'll be live throughout the whole of the transfer window with a video for you in the morning, a video for you in the evening, and if anything breaks during the day, I will go live as well. So if this is your first time watching Daily Red Devil, please do get involved, subscribe, and let's get into the show. Right, so let's start off with a bit of an overview of how the summer transfer window is going to look. There's been lots and lots of journalists coming out today with a story which to me seems like it's been somewhat briefed by the club. And the general headline is that Man United don't want to overpay for players anymore. That's what we're hearing today. And you know what? I applaud that because we have wasted so much money over the last decade on transfers for players that haven't worked and we've been effectively mugged off. Anthony, 100 million euros. Jadon Sancho, 75 million euros. Lukaku, you could even argue Pogba. The list goes on and on and on and on and on of players that we paid ridiculous amounts of money for and have never lived up to their expectations. Harry Maguire's another one. Now, the narrative coming out from various different journalists this afternoon or this evening even is that apparently Man United want to focus on younger players, players who have Premier League experience, but maybe aren't quite the finished product yet. They want to develop players into the next big star. And I agree with that fully. I think that's, how as a club we can be more sustainable going forward. It might be that you bring in somebody for 5-10 million, you bring them into the first team, and then in 5 years they're worth 50-60 million. Or you promote from the youth, like we've seen with Kobe Mainoo, like we've seen with Garnacho, or Willy Kwambala, or Marcus Rashford, or Scott McTominay. Like, Manchester United have been known for the youth over the last 50-60 years. It's been a club that has brought through the next big thing. But in the last decade, since the Glazers have here, we've heavily relied on bringing in Galactico signings to play in the team. If you look at the players that have come through our youth academy in the last decade, there's probably only about 10 that have really actually made it in the first team. Jesse Lingard, Rashford, McTominay, Mainoo, Garnacho. There's not that many. Obviously, Mainoo is incredible, Garnacho's incredible, but other than that, and Marcus Rashford obviously is incredible on his day as well, but other than that, we haven't developed that much youth. Whereas if you look at, say, Man City, Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, the list goes on and on and on with Man City of the players that they've had and have moved on and sold for lots of money. But I actually agree with, Ineos's plan here. So the story says this. It says, as part of Manchester United's new transfer strategy, there is a desire to target homegrown youth talent with a preference for those who have already some Premier League experience, as well as those who are British. It is understood players who have 1 or 2 years of Premier League experience are seen as the ideal candidates. Now, I agree with all of that. I just don't really get why they have to be British bit. Seems a little bit strange that they're only focusing on British players. I get that you need a certain amount of homegrown quota. That makes sense. But are you telling me that if there's a Brazilian playing for Fulham who's 18, who looks like the next big thing, they're not going to sign him because he's not British? Like, I don't really get that. And I remember when the takeover process was all happening, and we kept getting stories come out saying that, Jim Ratcliffe wants to build a British core at Manchester United. That's the bit that I don't really understand of all of this. I agree that we should stop overspending. I agree that, stop buying these Galactico signings for crazy money and giving them stupid wages. But I don't really understand why they want to focus on British players. Like, Manchester United have had so many quality players from other countries over the last however many years, Some of our best players. You could argue that, obviously, when you go back further, it's maybe not so much. But if you think in the last kind of 20 years, the Cantonars, the Cristiano Ronaldos, like, a lot of these top players that have come through Man United aren't British. Obviously we have had loads of good British players as well, of course. I'm not doubting that, but that's the bit that I don't really understand. And I think that, fans will be a little bit confused about that. Why are we focusing on British players? Which will tee me up nicely into the next part of the show, because what Manchester United are apparently looking at doing is that they want to go for Michael Olise and they also want to go for Jarrad Brathwaite. This is being widely reported today that apparently those will be Manchester United's first two signings of the summer transfer window. Crystal Palace apparently have a release clause of £60 million for Michael Olise. I think that's fair. I think he's worth 60 million. I think he's proved over the last couple of seasons that he is a Premier League level player. When Crystal Palace played us and they beat us 4-0, Michael Olise was the best player on the pitch. He was unbelievable. He's levels above Antony. So for £60 million, I think, I'm not going to say it's a bargain, but I think that is his fair market value. So I've got no issue with that. Go and get Michael Olise, give them the 60 million, move on Pellistri, move on Jadon Sancho, most likely move on Mason Greenwood. That's three players who need to leave or will leave. And then if it was up to me, I would move on Antony as well. I would take a loss on Antony, move him on, maybe a loan with an obligation to buy, something like that. Because Antony clearly isn't good enough. You know, he isn't. And I think most of the fan base would agree with that. He's been here 2 seasons. I think the first season, Antony got a lot of, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought Antony's first season, he did okay. He got some important goals. He scored a really nice goal against Barcelona. He scored against Arsenal. Like he got some good goals for us. But this season, he's been absolutely awful. Now, obviously, you have to consider that, you know, he's had off the field issues that have happened, you know, these domestic abuse allegations and stuff. And you have to wonder what impact that would have on his playing ability. And I agree with that. So, but in short, I still think Antony needs to be moved on. But you can let me know what you think about that in the comment section. Now, the interesting bit of this story today, this is coming out from a very reliable source in the UK, is that apparently Everton are willing to sell Brainthwaite for as little as £40 million. Now, the reason for this is because of financial fair play. Everton are apparently in an absolute mess. They're in a massive, massive situation here where if they don't sell players, they're apparently going to be deducted 9 points at the beginning of the Premier League season, which is absolutely crazy. So the story says this. It says Everton risk a heavy points deduction next season unless they sell several players and balance the books by June the 30th, which marks the end of their financial year and the end of their 3-year profit and sustainability period. It says if Everton can't raise the money through player sales by June the 30th, they will likely enter administration and start next season with a point deduction of 9 points. So Everton are desperate. Amadou Onana is probably going to leave. Jarrad Brathwaite's probably going to leave. And we need to be circling for these two players' signatures, in my opinion. I think those two would massively improve our team. Let me know what you guys think about that. Obviously, you know, some people have been saying 60, 80 million pounds for Brathwaite, but that's ridiculous. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Everyone who's just joined the show, could you give me a little bit of a favour and smash a like on today's video? Let's try and see 200 likes on this evening's show. And if this is your first time watching, please subscribe to the channel as well. As I said earlier on, I will be live throughout the whole of the transfer window. There'll be a show for you in the morning, a show for you in the evening, and also when anything breaks during the day, I go live as well. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell and smash a like on the video as well. So yeah, for me personally, Olise, thumbs up. Jarrad Brathwaite, thumbs up. I think both of them would be quality signings. 60 million for Olise, 40 million for Brathwaite. I think both of them get into our first team and both of them improve our team. That's the most important thing here. Those two could be first team players. You could have Brathwaite alongside Martinez, and Michael Olise will slot nicely into the right wing position. The only issue I have with this, though, is what happens to Garnacho and Rashford. Because Garnacho's played every single game this season, pretty much, hasn't he? He's been a starter. So if you bring in Michael Olise, where does Garnacho play? Where does Marcus Rashford play? Where does Amad Diallo play? Now, some would argue that that's actually a nice position to be in, that we would have competition. Whereas till now, Antony started every single game, and even if he plays crap, there's no one else really to challenge him because Amad was injured, Sancho's obviously gone to Dortmund, and Mason Greenwood's obviously not at the club. So I think that Michael Olise coming in is the kind of competition we need. Yes, it begs the question of who's going to start, what's going to happen to Rashford, but I think at a club of Man United's size, we need competition in those attacking areas. If a player isn't scoring goals, if a player's struggling, then to know that you have someone like Michael Olise or Amad or Sancho, or Rashford or Garnacho as your available options, that's really, really strong. So although some people would say £60 million for a player who might not even start, I think he would start. And I think that what will happen is Garnacho and Rashford will be battling out for that left wing position. because they're both better on the left wing, aren't they? Although obviously in the FA Cup final, Rashford was on the left and Garnacho was on the right, and it worked really well, didn't it? So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Obviously, there is a lot of competition for Olise. Chelsea are interested. Apparently, Man City might be interested. But I think the most important thing will be which club is willing to guarantee first team football. You know, if Man United say to him, you will be a starter, I think he will come to Manchester United. Apparently, he's a boyhood Man United fan. He wants to move. So, yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. But for me personally, I think, yeah, bringing in Olise and Brathwaite is definitely the kind of deals we should be looking at. And the story even goes as follows as well. It says that Manchester United are apparently very confident of signing Jarrad Brathwaite and Michael Olise this summer. We'll wait and see what happens. It's a lot of money to spend, obviously. So I think we're obviously going to have to sell some players, aren't we, to get ourselves in a position to be able to sell these. To buy these people. Moving over to the manager situation. So the headline this evening, coming out from a very reliable journalist here in the UK, is that Jim Ratcliffe apparently would demand Manchester United's manager to prepare for next season within a more tight profit and sustainability rule in severe. Yeah, so sorry, I was just reading that bit out of my head. So effectively, what is going to happen with whoever the manager is, obviously a lot of people want it to be Ten Hag, is they're going to have to be a little bit more stringent on money. Ineos aren't happy that over the last 2 summers, Man United have spent 400 million on players, you know, Casemiro, Antony, Onana, Mason Mount, etc., Rasmus Højlund. And the story even goes as follows to say that apparently Man United feel that about 200 million of that 400 was wasted, which I would agree with. You know, Rasmus Højlund is a quality player, but he's not worth 70 million. Antony is not a quality player and he's never worth 100 million. Mason Mount had 1 year left on his Chelsea contract, had been injured all season, and we paid 60 million for him. Onana, I think at the time no one really complained about the price, so I'm not going to criticise that. But you get, I mean, Casemiro, 70 million. Again, Real Madrid didn't want to give him a new contract. He was 30 when he came and we paid 70 million for him. So you can see where the frustration and the concern is from Ineos. And obviously, with Erik Ten Hag being the manager who was the face of those signings, you know, he was the advocate for Antony. He was the person who wanted to bring Onana and get rid of De Gea. He's obviously taken a lot of criticism for this, and rightly so. But the thing we have to remember is he wasn't the person who agreed the transfer fees. That was up to John Murtagh and Richard Arnold. So, yeah. Let's see what people are saying in the chat this evening. Gaming Simp says, Onana is starting to look better and better. I somewhat agree. I think he is improving, but I still think he's a bit dodgy. I'm not going to lie. Like, the goal that Onana conceded in the FA Cup final was terrible. I'm sorry. That was absolutely awful. But then at the same time, he did make some good saves as well. So it's a difficult one. I'll tell you what. Let's do a poll. Why not? So for anybody who's just joined, we have had a poll running for the first kind of 15 minutes of the show. And the question was this: are you expecting Ineos to spend big money this summer? Anybody watching it back on repeat, you can get in the comment section and let me know. 56% of people think that Ineos will spend big money this summer, and 44% of you think that they won't. So it's a little bit 50, almost 50-50 at the moment. And the question we've got for now is this: is Onana... Whilst I'm setting up this poll, everyone smash a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It doesn't cost any money and really helps the channel to bring in more people. So please go and do that. Is Onana the right goalkeeper future? So it's quite a simple question. It's a yes or no answer. Is Onana the right goalkeeper for the future? If you want to get in the live chat and give a little bit more reason for your answer, feel free to do that. And if you're watching it back on repeat, you can also get in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on Onana. Me personally, I always give players 2 seasons before I judge them. So Antony, in the first season, some people were saying he's crap, get rid of him. I said, give him another year. 2 years is the minimum. Onana's had 1 season, okay? He struggled, and he's openly admitted that. He was the first person to come out and say that he's not happy with his performances and that he has elite mentality and what he's produced is not good enough. And I respect that. So this season is where I'm going to judge him. I'm expecting him to be better at playing the ball out from the back. Obviously, he's going to have Martinez fit now and another ball-playing centre-back, hopefully. So you can't really judge him on his passing out from the back when you've got Maguire, Johnny Evans and Casemiro as your three centre-backs this season, who are all pretty hopeless at playing out from the back or playing under pressure. So I'm going to judge him on that because we're going to have our first choice centre-backs, touch wood. I'm also going to judge him on some of these bad mistakes because there's probably been about 10 games this season where he's conceded goals that, let's be honest, were absolutely terrible, like awful. So I think we're really, really going to have to judge him on that. But for me personally, I would definitely keep Onana. I think he has the potential to be a very, very good goalkeeper. You know, he showed that at Ajax. He showed that at Inter Milan. You don't suddenly become a bad goalkeeper or a player or a manager overnight. And for those of you who are backing Erik ten Hag, it's a little bit hypocritical if you're then like, get rid of Onana, you know? Everybody has a bad season here and there. He's allowed to have one bad season, and then in the second season, we expect him to kick on. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. But yeah, I would definitely give him one more season, I think, for me personally. And then we can kind of make a judgment at the end of that. Right, moving on to the manager situation, because there's been quite a lot of talk today that apparently if Erik ten Hag is to stay as the Manchester United manager, which I assume most people watching want, he's apparently going to have very minimal influence over the transfer decisions, which is apparently part of the club's new strategy going forward. And you know what? I agree with that 100%. I think Erik ten Hag's the right man for the job, but I don't think he should have a say or a big say on the transfers. How it should be done, in my opinion, is Ineos ask him what position he wants. For example, Erik ten Hag says, we need a new centre-back. Ineos then agree on that, and they find 3 profiles to fit the style of play that Ineos want Manchester United to play. Okay? That's how other top clubs work. And then they go to Erik ten Hag and they say, these are the 3 players. Maybe it's Todibo, Brathwaite, and, I don't know, Tosin or Bremer, whoever, right? And then Erik ten Hag can say, okay, my favourite is Todibo, my second favourite is Brathwaite, blah, blah, blah. And then Ineos can then go out and try and sign in that order. That's how it should work, you know? Because at the end of the day, even if Erik ten Hag stays as the manager now, best case scenario, he's going to be gone in 10 years. And I know 10 years is a very long time in football, but the point I'm trying to make here is that you need to be more like how Brighton operate, where, you know, when a manager goes, they bring in another manager who plays that same style of football because they know that as a club, they have a philosophy. And at the moment, we don't have a philosophy. We're trying to find our philosophy. And Ineos' job is to work out what that philosophy is, to implement a style of play, and then to pick a manager who can carry out the style of play that they want. So, yeah, I actually agree with that. Some people would say, you know, Erik ten Hag should have a voice, he deserves it, and all the rest of it. But from a transfer signings perspective, his signings have been poor, let's be clear. His talent ID, I don't think is very good. And I think that, you know, taking that power away from him makes a lot of sense. So I'm actually quite happy about that. But let me know what you guys think. You know, do you think Erik ten Hag should still be signing the players? Or do you think this makes a lot more sense that, you know, Ineos will effectively handle this? In relation to Dan Ashworth, there is a bit of an update here, and it's a frustrating one. Apparently, Dan Ashworth to Manchester United is going to happen. Manchester United only want Dan Ashworth. They're not interested in any other director of football. But apparently, he's not going to be able to start on any transfers this summer. Newcastle are reluctant to let him come. He's obviously on gardening leave at the moment, and it looks like we're going to have to wait. It's frustrating, and that's, I think, why, you know, one of the many reasons of why you should keep Erik ten Hag. You haven't got the people through the door yet. We don't know, you know, when Dan Ashworth's even going to be able to start. So for me personally, getting rid of your manager in such a time of uncertainty doesn't really make any sense, to be completely honest. But obviously, some people would disagree with me there. Right, moving on to some more transfer-related stuff. And obviously, we are going to be signing a new striker this summer. That's confirmed. A new striker will be coming in. Obviously, Anthony Martial's left. There is only Rasmus Højlund. There is only one striker in our club, which is obviously not acceptable. And the headline this evening coming out from Italy is that apparently Manchester United are interested in signing Bologna striker Joshua Zirkzee. He has a release clause of £34 million that will be valid between July the 1st and August the 15th. Now, obviously, we spoke about Zirkzee on this channel quite a lot in the past. 23 years of age, obviously Dutch international. Was at Bayern Munich originally. Bayern sold him to Bologna for only €8.5 million. He's got 11 goals and 5 assists this season in the Serie A. So he's averaged a goal or an assist every other game so far this season, which I think is pretty good. I think he'd be a quality option. I really, really do. I think him and Rasmus Højlund, or Rasmus Højlund and Sesko, need to be the type of profiles we're looking at. They're young players who can come in, will have something to prove as well. Because, if you go and sign like somebody who's just coming for money, an older player who's just coming for the money, they'll probably just be injured most of the time. Whereas, Joshua Zirkzee going to come in, and want to give 150%. Obviously, Arsenal are interested in him as well. Arsenal are also interested in Benjamin Sesko. So I think we'll either get Joshua Zirkzee or Benjamin Sesko, would be my prediction. And then Arsenal will probably get the other one. So maybe we'll end up with Zirkzee and Arsenal will end up with Sesko. But that would be an interesting one to get your thoughts on, actually. Who would you rather have, Benjamin Sesko or Joshua Zirkzee? Let's do a poll on that quickly. So in relation to the Onana question, 73% of you think Onana is the right man for the job, for the goalkeeper, and 27% of you say no. So that's interesting. Let's do a poll on the striker. Who would you rather sign? Let's do Joshua Zirkzee. And then let's do Benjamin Sesko. Cool. All right, get involved in that poll. If you could only have one or the other, Joshua Zirkzee or Benjamin Sesko, who would you go for? It's a really difficult one, that, actually. And obviously, I'm aware I've put you all on the spot. I think Benjamin Sesko is probably better at the moment. He's 3 years younger. But I think he's going to cost more money. I think he's going to be closer to 50 million. And I think Arsenal are going to go for him. Apparently Chelsea want him. PSG want him as well. There are lots of clubs who want him. Will he come to Manchester United? If we're not in the Champions League? I don't know. If I had to pick between one or the other, I probably would go with Benjamin Sesko. But I think, in all honesty, Zirkzee is probably the more likely option. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. It's such early days in the transfer window. That we'll have to wait and see what how this all materializes. Right. I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thanks to everyone who's joined me on the show this evening. Please smash a like before you go. Let's try and see 200 likes on this evening's stream. And make sure you subscribe as well. Get involved. I'm live every day, in the morning, in the evening. And if anything breaks during the day, I will go live as well. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. This has been Daily Red Devil. I'll be back at 11 a.m. UK time tomorrow. Have a great evening.